We are live, coming here with a brand new Stir the Pod podcast show. I'm your host, Trevor, and tonight we are joined by Alex. Alex, how you doing?
Yo.
And we are here with the episode 18 recap show, but it would not be a recap without the man, the myth, the legend, back from the Redemption House, Mr. Andy Burge. Andy, how you doing tonight?
I'm back, baby. I'm back. You know, I went through the Redemption House. I took out everyone, and you know what? I'm happy to be back and back with the boys. We got a final. I'm on cloud nine right now.
Yeah, I mean, great to have you back. Thank God for spoilers and stuff for our sake because you're here already. So that means Fresh Meat 3 didn't go so well?
I signed an NDA. I'm not allowed to say anything, but let's just say if you were a gambling man, put it right here.
All right. So episode 18 recap show. We had part one of the final, 60-minute long. 60-minute long will not be my MVP tonight, so sorry about that. But I thought it was a good episode. I was very entertained by it. Alex, what was your initial thoughts?
Yeah, very, very straightforward episode. It was about exactly what you would expect from a part one of a final, especially like a 60-minute part one. There wasn't a whole lot outside of the final itself. And it was just, the classic run and checkpoints. I mean, that's what finals are. They're tough. This one looked pretty tough so far. And I think next week's is 90 minutes, so it'll be a little longer to kind of close it all out. But I think overall it's just very basic, not bad by any means, a good episode, set the stage well for next week, I think.
Yeah, Andy, what did you think?
Well, before I talk about the final, can I just give two quick things about last week's episode because I wasn't here. Well, I was, and my LVP was spot on. But Fessy's little love note that he wrote last week, what a pussy. Are you kidding me? And my last thought on that was I loved last week's episode. It was one of my favorites of the season. Wow. But yeah, going on to this one, I really liked it. This was one of my favorite episodes of the season. Definitely. Probably top – I mean, we can probably say top 25. How many episodes were in this season? I mean – yeah, I was a big fan. It was probably top 3 for me. But it was. And sometimes I think final episodes can drag on a little bit, like where you just feel like you're watching them run the whole time, but there's not much to it. I didn't feel like this had it. It was pretty action-packed start to finish. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was – I feel like this, part one was I think we are a little skewed because Fezzy got – basically knocked out. So I think that's why all of us are jacked up. We're fired up, very Cody Co-esque. So I think that's why this episode was so good. I have to rewatch it, see it again to see actually if it was really good. But kind of like that last 15 minutes, it was literally that Grinch meme, just that biggest smirk. I'm excited. I wanted them out, and it looks like they could very well be on their way out. So.
And just like by nature of the episode and the fact that it's a final means that there was no fluff. There was no fluff in this episode. It was all everything related to the final. And I think we kind of touched on this a little bit last week, that last season, I think they jammed the whole final into one episode. Now it was 90 minutes, so it was longer than tonight, but they jammed the entire final in there. And I think that final was just watching on TV, a bad one. It just felt super rushed. So the pace that they kind of got going tonight, I feel, was much better than last season.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, let's dive right into the episode recap. So we start the episode out, and we're back. Fezzy, first person to walk back in to the house. So that is our last time. So Alex, our theory, I think – What was the official total? 15 out of 18 episodes? I think there was the two, to be continued, and then one, it didn't happen.
Yeah, I would say, so tonight was 18 episodes. I'd say there's probably been 16 opportunities for it to happen, and I think it happened 15 times out of 16.
Yeah, absolutely. So the boy comes in, fuck him, And then, I mean, really nothing really big happened after that. It was mostly just, the classic, oh, I'm pumped up. We made it this far already. I got to win money for blah, 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 fill in the blank. So, we kind of got each person's one by one of that. Andy, you want to hop in there? Were you about to say something?
Question. Well, yeah, you just sparked, or you said something that sparked something in my head. Is anyone building a gym with this money? Is that the first time in challenge history that no one's building a gym?
I feel like Corey might still. He's got a lot of money, and
he's got like 16 mouths to feed.
Correct. So he's got his family, obviously, and on top of that, I mean, he's a huge trainer for the NFL and stuff. So,
are we sure Corey has kids?
Oh, come on.
Cheaper by the dozen, 3.
God. God, Battle of the Families coming soon. Zach and Jenna.
Season 50.
God, did any of you guys see Zach and Jenna's post? Or I think it was Zach who did it.
About having a boy?
Was he really, he basically said, oh, it's a boy, because the fist? Was that his reasoning?
I think so.
What?
He does. I don't think Zach wants a swamp donkey.
God. Jesus Christ. All right, so you got the classic teams are preparing for each other. And then we kind of just dive right in, and there's I guess a hurricane, the tail end of a hurricane coming in and just, trying to blow the competitors away or whatever. So we get the rules for this final, pretty basic. Third place or fourth place goes home after day one if they don't qualify. Third place, $0. Second place, you split $100K, and then in first place, you get $900K, so $450 each, which is, I mean, a pretty good day, pretty good payday. Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, I think one of the staples that we've seen in this era of all the shows is that it's more skewed towards first place. I did kind of like how second place got something, because I feel like we've had seasons in recent memory where it's like first place or nothing. And I feel like what this at least does is there's obviously still a huge gap between first and third, 900, 100,000. But I feel like it at least adds, it makes a difference between second and third. Because on those other seasons, it's like if you get first, you get everything. If you get second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever, you don't get anything. So there's really makes no difference. Whereas now it's like you get that big money if you get first. Second place, you get some money. Third, you get nothing. So I kind of liked it better than what we've had recently.
Yeah, it looks like the chat, and shout out to the chat tonight. Jesse Adams, love by you. Who else do we have tonight?
Ryan McCord popped in there. I saw that.
Ryan McCord, Mikey the Doctor, the usual gang back at it again. It seems like a lot of people in the chat would like money, first place gets, let's say 60%, and then you go to 30% to 10%. So 30 for second, and then 10% for third. What do you guys think about that? I'm not necessarily a huge fan of that. I'm not a huge fan of everybody getting participation trophies and stuff like that. I think first and second I'm completely fine with. Jesse Adams, right? 250,000 for second. I think 125K a person is kind of a lot for second place. I probably would do, if I were to do it, would be 800,000 would be first place. And then I was thinking 150 for second and then 50 for third, if you were to go that route.
I like the third gets nothing. The only problem with third gets nothing, and we kind of saw glimpses, I'm sure we'll get into this, but in what was it with Jay and Jenna? What was that season?
Jay and Jenna, you said?
Yeah. When they quit.
Rivals 3.
So they were forfeiting.
It's not Rivals 3?
X is 2.
X is 2. God, I always confuse those.
So X is 2.
Bananas, but obviously Jenna was with Vince. Sorry.
Well, so the only reason I like when third does get money is because they forfeited $10,000. They literally just gave away $10,000. Whereas in this challenge, once we chop off fourth and then we get to whoever's in third place, if they quit, they're not giving anything up. So I kind of like sprinkling them. It's kind of like in Mario Party battle mini games, where first place gets the big sack, second gets a little bit, but then they do that coin back to someone, and it goes to third or fourth. I don't hate that. I don't like. I think 250 for second place is way too much. I would cap it at 150 because keep in mind, it was only like maybe 3 years ago where first place was getting 250, split between two people. So giving first place money to second place I don't really like that, but I'd be fine with 150, 75, 75. I think that's a good second place.
Well, isn't it crazy to think, like, literally Bananas, when he took the money and run from Sarah, it's $275K. That's it, which is crazy. Looks like a few other people are in the chat. Leah Hope, thanks for joining us. She agrees with just first and second getting money. So what else we got, Alex?
I mean, that was pretty much what TJ explained to them all before the final. And it seemed like, based on laying out the rules, that it's going to be a partners thing throughout. Obviously, we saw with one of the checkpoints, and we'll get into that, they might be switching up partners, but it's definitely going to be a duos thing the entire time. That was about it for the rules, and then they get right into the final. And it's, the classic run, stop at a checkpoint, and all of that. So the first part, I think they said was a 3-mile run. This was right when the wind was coming in. So any thoughts? We'll get into the little like King of the Hill challenge that they have with all the colors. We'll get into that in a sec. But any specific thoughts on the first 3-mile run? I thought it was very normal. I did kind of like how it looked like it was like tough terrain to run on, like with all those rocks up and down all these hills. We saw people stumbling in basically every shot. So it wasn't just like a straight run through the desert, which I kind of liked. But any thoughts on the run? I think overall CT and Amber finished first, and then Fezzi, Casey, Kaim and Corey, and Leroy and Nani. Anything before the first checkpoint there?
No, I mean, I thought it was a pretty basic 3-mile run. I do think it was kind of a difficult run. It did not look like it was just a straight, flat, easy run. I mean, in the beginning, I would say, in the first 3 miles, I feel like it was more flat than when they had to do the code, and we'll get into it, or grab the keys. When they got the keys, it started getting a lot rocky and stuff. I mean, tough run to do.
Yeah. But even that first 3 miles was just a run in the park for Fezzi. His body was built for this.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean, no surprise there. But yeah, I like it. Little bit of a terrain makes for interesting 3 miles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And maybe they shortened it up a little bit because it was a little bit of a tougher terrain. Like 3 miles, I feel like, at least to start it, isn't as long as they usually do, but it was definitely harder to actually run on. So you get to that first checkpoint, and I mean, just overall thoughts on this. You had a guys heat and a girls heat. Just running up that little hill. It was a flashback to the first challenge, which was when? November? I mean, that was this season.
And when it comes down to it, I mean, we've preached this how many times this season? We've had the same eliminations 3 times, 4 times for some. And now the fact that we are getting the same daily challenges, I mean, come on. I don't know how lazy writing can possibly be to do that shit. Like, that just pisses me off. Like, it's a fucking final. At least do something different that these people have been, like, eating. Like, the eating thing, I'm happy for that. They kind of done that in the past, but let's be real. What a fucking joke that was. I don't know how you guys feel.
You didn't like
it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I like the challenge itself. Completely fine with it. But the fact that it's a repeat, that pisses me off. It's just lazy.
Well, see, Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think they used to do this back in the day, like in the dual twos of the world, where they would do like little checkpoints during the final that were based off of old challenges and eliminations. I kind of like it. I get your point about them being lazy the whole season, but I don't know.
I think that's more of what it is like, we're coming off 2 headbangers in 2 episodes when they could have just mashed it to 1. We've seen the same, like, 4 eliminations the entire season. And then, they throw that at us for the first thing. Maybe I'm just a little biased right now. If I rewatch it, actually. There's no chance I rewatch the season. But maybe it's just, kind of hot or kind of, fresh in my mind. So
see, I liked it. It was kind of like a little callback. I didn't mind it.
Fucking November.
Well, and that's the thing. So I was talking to one of my buddies earlier today about doing something tonight, and I said, "Well, no, it's the final for the challenge." And he said, "Wait a minute, that's still on?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Wait, I thought you were doing that like back in 2020." And yeah, months into 2020, we were doing that. I swear, happened conversation. But I like the callback. I like the when you have consistent ones over and over or consistently repeated challenges or eliminations, it kind of gets annoying. But I didn't mind a callback from episode 1.
I mean, and like I said, it's not a bad challenge. Like I said, I think I was just kind of fresh in my mind, like, how lazy can you fucking be? And just to say, Andy, this season did start December 9th, 2020. So just past the November, but we'll get to that. So we got the King of the Hill challenge. And it's basically down to, I would probably say, CT and Fezzi are kind of like the two people kind of just really neck and neck the entire time. They're kind of just fighting, who's the top alpha dog. And I mean, CT wins, which good for him,
Yeah, and it ended up playing out, I think, very similarly to how that first challenge went, where it was like somebody tries to hold it and then other people come around and like they read the colors while one person's holding it and then that person throws it. So it was like some physicalness to it, but it wasn't like everybody was fighting the entire time for it. Yeah, CT won. I think he got it on his first check, which wasn't really that surprising because I feel like a challenge like this, it's a lot more mental than physical. Because you have to, at the end of the day, no matter how you do it, whether it's you're fighting over it, you're holding it, everybody's looking, at the end of the day, it comes down to memorizing colors, like a 5-year-old. And Corey couldn't do it. Leroy couldn't do it. And Fezzi, got a little butt hurt when CT was throwing him around on the hill a little bit. But I would say going into that, CT would have been the favorite just because he's obviously a big physical guy, but he also is smart enough to do puzzles like this in the final. So overall result-wise, I wasn't too surprised. I mean, I would have been shocked if like Corey won this thing. I mean, he's an idiot. But overall, not surprised that CT won.
Yeah, I wasn't either. Andy, anything from this?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised either.
So girls heat, this is where I was surprised. Amber B picking up the dub. Very surprised. I thought I would probably say Cam was probably the favorite going into it. And kind of like the entire episode, and we'll kind of get into it. I was very disappointed in Cam's performance this entire episode. I know Love by You is going to probably shit on me for it, but Cam did not look good today at all. The running portion, I think their team was third for a majority of it. And, being the top dog, like, she did not have a good showing tonight.
I would say I agree. I don't think she had a good showing. I also don't think she had a bad showing, though.
No, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, even though she wasn't the favorite, I mean, you just expect more, but it wasn't necessarily bad.
Alex, anything?
I mean, I agree. I think for some parts of it, Cam kind of seemed like she was just happy to be there. But at the end of the day, I think what this whole episode reminded me of is just like how fluky finals can be sometimes. And not necessarily fluky, but like CT said it right away. It comes down to the checkpoints. That's what it is. Especially in the final with runs as short as these. Like, obviously CT and Amber ended up winning both of the checkpoints that we saw tonight. But it's like when those runs are so tight, if you are able to memorize a couple colors before another team, then we're talking about the order completely differently tonight.
Yeah.
So it just comes down to all those little things.
So Amber wins. So literally the team is Amber and CT. Perfect match. Question for you guys or the chat. I don't know if any of you guys can answer it. But how the hell did Amber get picked? To be that ultimate winner of that challenge.
Time.
You know what I'm saying?
From when TJ says go, the time until
It was the fastest time.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
right. Yeah, I think so.
I was just making sure because I was like, I didn't know if it was just like because their team won, or how it was actually chosen like that. Because I at first I was thinking like their team won. How did they choose Amber? Like, could you imagine if Corey would have won the first heat and then Amber? Like, how would you choose it? But thank you for correcting me. It was the quickest.
You probably couldn't hear it over all the wind because they're in a hurricane.
That is true. Okay, Alex, anything else with that or?
I mean, well, then we get Amber's decision, right? Like this kind of caught me off guard when they, did the classic TJ cut to commercial and all that. I thought at this point they were done with switching partners and having the option to. So I mean, it really caught me off guard. And Amber's. So what do you guys think about both Amber having the option to switch partners and then her choosing to stay with CT?
Well, one, that completely came out of nowhere. I was surprised they even had the option.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. I think she made a smart move staying with CT. What they did, because people forget, this is their first time actually working together. They really haven't done this is literally the first time working together as a team, and they were the first team done. The run, everything. I think this is actually, and it was funny because I was mocking them last episode. I thought this was going to be the worst team. They've shut me up, and they look good.
Trev, I told you before this episode, don't sleep on Amber and CT. And you laughed.
I mean, I got to see some receipts on that. You were in Mexico, so I don't know when you said that. So,
and my MVP was CT. Is it fun?
Fair enough. Anything else, Alex?
No, I mean, Amber would have been stupid to switch. They were doing so good in the final, and you had like if it would have been less dumb if CT won and was able to switch for Cam or somebody, but like for Amber to switch away from CT to big bad Fezzy, like, come on. So I think Amber made the right choice there.
I loved the facial expressions from Fezzy during this stuff.
Oh,
she didn't pick me.
She's not picking me. Why would she not want to run with the big bad wolf? Why would she pick this other bigger, older guy who's also won like 3 finals and has been on the challenge for 15 seasons? Why would she want him over me? I'm me. I'm the Fezmeister. I played football at University of Tennessee. Why would you not want to be with me? And then, of course, during his confessionals, he's just like, "Oh, I'm happy to be with Casey. Like, I'm happy that I get thorough." But the old it was just awesome. But I also think that if CT won, I think he would have kept Amber too. And the reason I say this is because, and CT said this at the start, the running's everything. Amber B was waiting on CT for that to finish that 3-mile run. No one else was like that. The guy was leading the pack for every duo aside from them. So if I'm CT, I'm like, you know what? I'm the slow one. If I'm the slow one in my team's winning the final. Chattanooga.
There it is. So she stays with CT. And then we got the 2-mile run to the key, my key. So we had group 1 going first was the winners, CT and Amber. And then we had Big Brother, Fezzy and Casey. Then we had Kaim and Corey, and then we had Nani and Leroy. So during this 2-mile run, it looked like, Fezzy and Casey were – here's another thing I don't like, about the finals. How can they possibly – I'm trying to think of the most fair way they can do it. Like Amber and CT finished like 5 minutes ahead of any other team, right? How do they only get a 30-second head start in part 2?
That's not what happened. Go
ahead.
It was the average of how fast CT did and how fast Amber did on finishing the first run was the gap between. So like how fast Amber beat Casey. Let's say that was 4 minutes, and CT and and CT beat the Fezmeister by 2, they get a 3-minute head start. That's how they determined it.
It didn't seem that way. Like, I felt like they caught him pretty fast, and it looked like they finished way in front of him.
That's how they say it, but again, it's MTV.
Yeah,
like,
and I think
the difference when the second 3 and 4 started, it was like 2 seconds. Like, they ran like 100 meters, boom, next. Realistically, it was probably 10 to 15 seconds.
Yeah,
So.
TJ, when they did like second, third, fourth, it almost seemed like TJ announced them in the same cut, like meaning you could kind of tell it wasn't edited and it was pretty quick. But I do, like Andy said, I think that was how they started them, was they averaged the times of how everybody finished, and they said that. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that, because like I like that was how they did it, and that they explicitly said this is how we're doing it. Because we've seen in finals before, they can almost ruin finals where it's like, you know, first place, you beat somebody by 2 hours, you get a 30-second head start, or whatever the case may be, or only first place gets a head start, whatever. Whereas this time TJ said, and again, even though they said it, doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% accurate, but at least we got them telling us, hey, this is how we did it. And I think how they explained it was is almost always the fairest way to go in a final.
Yeah.
CT and Amber earned that exact lead that they got the second day, or the second run.
Yeah. So they start the run. Fezzi and Casey catch up. They are actually the first team to grab their key. And then that's when all hell starts to break loose. And I don't even know what happened, if Casey just slipped and fell or stepped on the wrong rock. And it looked like she said she dislocated her knee or something. So down goes Casey, not good at all. Fezzi was just, oh my God. This was one of the worst moments like I've ever seen. He was just like, not this again. Why does this always happen to me? Fuck her, basically. And it was just like, what the hell? What do you have to say about it, Andy?
I mean, he's just such a bitch.
Is that it?
Like, there's really no other way to put it. Like, he's been doing this. He's been treating all these girls and all the guys like they don't even deserve to be on the same show as him. They don't deserve to be breathing the same air as him. And he finally had someone who's supposedly as athletic as he is, and also someone he's really close with. And the fact that he's still, when she's down there, he's just sitting there like, are you serious? This is supposedly like your friend outside of the show, and you're still giving that bullshit, oh, she's the reason why. If you're this big bad wolf, pull a Mr. Beautiful and pick up your partner in the final and run to the key. If you are as good as you say you are, do something about it. Kenny carried Wes up a mountain.
Too. Like literally, this guy is a Division I football player at the University of Tennessee. I'm sure he can pick up fucking Casey on his shoulders and run like 100 yards or as far as it is. It's just, I don't know. It just blows my mind. And like you said it, and like, I mean, the chat, everybody agrees. Everybody in this chat, everybody who listens to this podcast, fuck him. He is so bad. He's such a pussy. Unbelievable. But anything else, Chattanooga, Alex, you want to put in?
I mean, no, I completely agree. And I think what was going through my mind during this 10, 15 minutes of the episode was just, wasn't necessarily this guy sucks, because I mean, I completely agree with that. It was almost, I was just thinking about like the edit that Fessy has gotten this entire season. And I think this moment was what it was leading up to. Like, you know, every season, the people who have the biggest spots in the game get a certain edit by production. And the edit's real to some extent, exaggerated to some extent. And I feel like the edit that Fezzi has gotten all season is exactly what we're talking about. Like a self-centered guy who thinks he's the best partner ever, thinks he's the best player ever. And girls are slowly, you know, in the second half of the season, slowly starting to not want to be with him because of how bad of a team player he is. And then that just builds, you know, to the, like, this final. And I feel like the way they edited it, he probably wasn't going to win this thing. Like, if he wasn't going to have the hero ending to this. He was going to have something like this, where it's like his girl partner, who he's best friends with, like we said, literally breaks her leg or whatever happened, can't walk anymore. And then they cut to Fezzi saying, oh, this is a really hard pill for me to swallow. I'm Fezzi. Usually my teammates at University of Tennessee, they can get through this. Like, it's on me. Like, now I can't compete. Now I can't win a final. I'm Fezzi. And like all of this stuff. And so it just kind of like, I feel like this right here, and we'll see how it plays out, I guess, next episode. But I feel like this was the end. This is the end of Fezzi here. Was like, this is his edit. He's had it all season. A bad person, a bad teammate, and he's going to go out like it the same way.
Yeah. The last down, the one thing that was running through my head, and I'm sure we are going to see this on the reunion even more so now, is now he can say, oh, no, I would have won it. I would have won it. No, I would have backpedaled my way in. If I had a girl who was as good as me as my partner, I would have won it, no doubt. That was another thing that was just popping in my head. And I was just like, fuck, even though this guy's going to get dead last, it's still a boost to his ego.
Yeah.
Like, he's just the worst. He's just the worst.
Yeah, and I think another thing, what we're going to see is literally just anybody who wins. If it's Leroy being like, I'm just saying, if Leroy wins, or CT, or who's the last person? CT. Corey, sorry. He'll call them out and be like, you won that final because I was out. Know that, right? You know that, right? And it's just like, dude, like, shut the fuck up. Sit your ass down. You're not a fucking god. And oh my god.
Yeah, we'd love that we get to see Fezzi lose. We would love it more if we got to see him lose fair and square.
Yes, absolutely. It would have almost been better if he went into an elimination. Like, if that first stage was like an elimination and he went home, let's just say against CT or whoever, like, that would have been 10 times better. The fact that this injury thing is just an excuse. It's going to pit. And like the boys have said, it's going to be the excuse for the next 5 years. It sucks. So,
I hope to God we do not get Fezzi for another 5 years.
Oh, absolutely. We'll 100% get him. They're obsessed with him. MTV sucks him off. It's ridiculous. And it's going to be so classic because in 7 months, 8 months from now, when we get episode 1 recap of season 37, I bet you $100 the first confessional says, I'm back, last season, I should have won the final, but, it wasn't my fault. Injuries came to play. You can record this clip right now, Jesse Adams or whoever. It will 100% be said. So, yeah.
I don't disagree.
So then, we have to kind of carry the Fezzi bashing into the whole eating checkpoint.
And
we get to the eating checkpoint. The 3 teams obviously beat Fezzi and Casey there. We can get to maybe those 3 in a sec, but then Casey has a thing around her leg. I don't know why they didn't give her crutches. She was walking down those rocks, like couldn't even walk, and Fezzi was like kind of carrying her. But then they are somehow allowed to get to the eating checkpoint and like they can continue to eat and like can compete. But Fezzi just doesn't take one bite.
Oh my God. This moment, he was the biggest pussy I've ever seen in my life right there. Casey worked her ass off this entire season. She worked her ass off in this final. She literally dislocated her knee. Sorry, I know I'm getting loud, getting the rant coming. But literally, she has a dislocated knee. She's giving it her all. She's chugging. She's literally stuffing the stuff in her mouth. She doesn't give a shit. She knows she's giving it all. And this little motherfucker is like, why should I do it? Why should I do it? It's like, dude, grow a pair and actually drink. You are literally looking like Jay from Battle of the X's 2. You look like a pussy. Nobody likes you. Like, oh my God, it's so annoying. Jay ate more. Absolutely. 100% agree. Sorry. Go ahead. Someone else rant.
Well, so I'll get into it. And this has been my thing with Fezzi the whole time. This is my thing with Tyree. There's more to the challenge than being the biggest, baddest guy on the season. That's just what the show is. That's why I love this show, because it's not like Big Brother where it's nothing but just like scheming and plotting. It's not, the world's strong man where you just have to be the biggest guy out there. You have to have so many different tools in your toolbox that you can lean on. You want to know why CT's really fucking good? Because he does everything. He's not just big, but he can run. He's good at politics. He can eat. He can do everything at the challenge. And guess what? In the finals where you get exposed, if you have a weakness, it will get exposed and you will lose as a result. If Casey was 100%, they would be in dead last out of this eating challenge because Fezzi's a little bitch. I don't care how many reps of 225 he can do. I don't care what his broad jump is. I don't care what his fucking 40 is. If you can't eat ram's testicles and a sheep face and drink a liter of blood, then don't be on don't be on the challenge, but you're not going to win the challenge. That's just what it boils down to. You can run up that little hill in King of the Hill and you can grab CT and wrestle him around. But if you can't match up the colors to your piece at the end, you're not going to win. And guess what? CT won. You have to be able to do everything. Just because you're 6'6", 240 doesn't mean you're going to win the challenge. It doesn't mean you're the best. So for him, and it goes back to when he was getting in CT's face of, I'm carrying the torch. All right, eat more than me. Eat more than me in a final and then take my torch. Beat me in a puzzle and then take my torch. He's just such a little bitch. And there's so much more to the challenge than just being big. And he got absolutely fucking exposed. And I wish Casey was healthy because he still would have gotten exposed.
Well, you know what it reminds me of? It almost reminds me of Lolo Jones talking to the girls. How Lolo was just I'm the best athlete here. I dominate. And she was exposed this season. She did not look that good on challenges, even dailies, because this isn't a sport. You can't just say I'm an Olympic athlete, Lolo Olympic athlete. You can't just say that stuff because this game is different than any other game on the world. It's literally the fifth major sport for a reason. It is literally so many different things going around. So I think tonight was the perfect reason why, it just literally exposed who Fezzi was. He can't do an eating challenge. I mean, he was literally couldn't eat it. Alex, what are your thoughts on it? I know you've been dying to dive in. So
no, I mean, I completely agree. A couple thoughts. One is exactly that. One of the thoughts that I had about Fezzi this whole episode was this guy just needs to learn how to run finals. He's a good competitor. Obviously he's a big, strong, fast guy, all that thing. But he's been in 2 seasons and he's made 2 finals. So that's good experience to have. But CT at this point is a machine in finals. And we don't know if he's going to win this or what, but he does all of this shit good or better that you need to win a final. And yeah, it's taken CT 20 seasons to get this experience. But Fezzi is on a good track, but competing in challenge finals are just so much different from all of this. And to go back to the whole eating thing and how he said he wasn't going to compete, it's an eating checkpoint. They got there and CT and Amber weren't done yet. They weren't first place yet. They could have gotten there. It wouldn't have been completely, unrealistic for Fezzi and Casey, who couldn't move, but it doesn't matter. You're standing at the thing. It wouldn't be unrealistic for them to get first place in there. Just devour the food, get first place, throw your thing on somebody else, and then maybe you get an overnight stay. Casey can rest up a little bit, and then it's anybody's game. But for Fezzi to just take the route of oh, you hurt your leg and you're probably not going to be able to go anymore, so I'm not going to even try to eat. Just the biggest bitch move of all time. But I think last thing is I think at this point though, it's almost satisfying to know though that you can't take the other side on this. We've kind of shout on Fezzi the entire season, but at this point, how can you defend the last 15 minutes of his performance tonight? There's nothing to say.
What I loved about this, and we even brought this person up earlier, when Fezzi's doing this part of the challenge, he is Jay. You take a foot off Fezzi, you take 100 pounds off Fezzi, and those two are the exact same. So I don't give a shit if you're 5'6" or 6'6". They performed the exact same at this part of their respective finals. I don't give a shit how big you are. And Jay was one of the worst final performances we've ever seen. He's an absolute laughingstock. He's Mighty Mouse. Well, he's not Mighty Mouse. That's Trey. But he's an absolute shrimp. And that's what goes to show you that Fezzi and Jay are in the exact same conversation, and they're not even close to the same physical specimens.
Yeah. So kind of moving on a quick sec from that, we had CT and Amber take down the food and finish first. So kind of the good old to be continued kind of ends with the dessert plate. So who do you throw this dessert on? I think there's a clear, obvious choice of who to throw on. I think clearly you throw it on Kaim and Corey. I think that's the logical choice. One, Leroy, what's it called? Leroy and Nani. I mean, we all know they're kind of that last place team if everybody's 100% healthy. Then you look at Fezzi right now, and who I would make him eat. I mean, he's not going to eat it, so you might as well throw it on Corey and Cam. And if, let's say, Fezzi and Casey win, then who knows if that's the end of day one of the final, or probably not end of day one, but that elimination cut. Then you have an injured team in Leroy and Nani. I mean, I take that all day. So you want to keep that team. You basically want to, leave the lamb to die. So you give it to, I would obviously say Corey and Cam. You guys agree?
100%. I think Corey, I don't think there's a right answer, because I do think giving it to Leroy and Nani is also not a bad move, especially gauging how much food each team has. There is a wrong answer, and that's giving it to Casey and Fezzi.
I do like Woodie's response there for it, though, if you want to respond to it. I do really like that.
Pettiness is out the window when 900 grand's on the table. Fezzi's already looking like a bitch. He already looks like an idiot. And
yeah,
you give it to someone who's actually going to give you a hard time winning the money.
Yeah, Alex?
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be Corey and Cam. And I think really the only reason that they even, considered Fezzi and Casey, at least in the way they edited it, was just because of the fact that the other two teams have Leroy on one team and Cam on one team. So it's they're not going to tell CT to throw it on each other. So they're going to say the third team who's there being Fezzi and Casey. Obviously, we know that, half of their team can't even walk right now. But I mean, I feel like if you do anything aside from Kaim and Corey, you're inviting Kaim and Corey to compete with you in the rest of the final. Whereas if you throw it at them, maybe it just destroys their team. They can't finish it. Fezzi and Casey can't finish it. And then you're going against Leroy and Nani, who have been last place all episodes.
Yeah.
So I would say you got to go Kaim and Corey. What did you think about kind of ending the episode here?
Yeah, I think this was a good ending spot. Obviously it was to be continued. So, performance-wise, looking at the four teams, we've already talked about it, but Amber and CT looked great. I was surprised at how good, I literally picked them to, I think, finish third was my prediction, and they looked good. I was very surprised for a team that's never worked together. So good for them. My biggest disappointment, I guess this is kind of LVP, so I'll wait on my biggest disappointment. But what do you guys think about the teams and how they performed today?
I agree. I feel like Fezzi and Casey performed well, and it just, happened to have that injury, and then Fezzi being a pussy at the end there. But they did as good as I think you would expect from them. Amber and CT, I think, were the big surprise. But then, as it was going on, it's you almost think that it shouldn't be that surprising just because CT is that much of a veteran. It wasn't surprising that Nani was basically in last place of all 8 people on all of the running parts. And then it's also the last team there that I haven't mentioned yet, not last place, is Kaim and Corey. And they just did a classic Kaim and Corey thing where they they're good, they're in the hunt, but they're not first place.
Very 8-8 football team going to the playoffs.
Corey's always kind of like the Houston Texans. He looks good on paper. He may sneak into the playoffs, but once it gets down to that cold weather finals, not going to make it out.
Andy, anything?
No, I was a little less surprised than you guys were though at CT and Amber. Even though Amber, of all 8 people left, was probably viewed as the weakest competitor. Running is like 70% of the final.
Mhm.
It really is. And like we've never seen her. And that's why like sometimes rookies can come in and just get blown away, but she's in good shape and she had 2 good eliminations in the Hall Brawl. Like Amber, she's a rookie and we still haven't seen everything that she can bring to the table. But so far, like what is she not done?
It's a good question. I mean,
Realistically.
I just think it's more of the rookie aspect.
Yeah, which is understandable.
Yeah. And, looking at the girls that were in front of them, I mean, Casey and Leroy this entire season looked amazing. So even though Casey got a new partner, I mean, she's still really good. Cam's really good. And I think I just, I like Nani and, I think benefit of the doubt. That's why I rated them higher. One thing I do want to bring up, and this is kind of like if we want to talk about kind of like predictions for part 2, do you think there will be another opportunity to switch partners in this game?
I would guess yes.
Wow. And do you think anybody would? I think it depends, obviously, on scenarios. Like if you're in third place.
Yeah.
But Andy,
I think any girl should be picking CT, whether it's Amber, whether it's Cam, and that's why like when Amber was making her decision, why would you not want CT on your team?
Yeah.
Regardless of what gets thrown at you, he's going to be able to do it, and he's going to be able to do it really well. Like that's really all it boils down to. You're not going to pick Corey because if a puzzle comes up, you're fucked. You're not going to pick Leroy. And granted, we probably won't see a swimming challenge because it's a hurricane. But if there is a swimming challenge and Leroy is your partner, you're out. Like we saw that I think that was Rivals 3, where the first one they had to swim to a kayak, and right out of the gate, he's toast. Where they jump out of a plane or helicopter and have to swim, you're done. You can't pick a partner who has a glaring weakness.
X's 2.
CT has none. Was that X's 2?
Yeah, with Teresa.
Yeah. He has no weaknesses.
Yeah, I agree. The chat's pretty, 50-50 on it, it looks, with picking partners again. I kind of hope not. I don't know what you think, Alex, Andy. I kind of like the teams where they're at right now. I would like to see, as much as I don't want to see, this team get split up, but I would like to see Cam and Leroy run together. I think that'd be kind of interesting to see how they work together. But I do like Leroy and Nani, and I think it's very fitting for Leroy to, start his challenge career and end it with kind of the same person. I think that's kind of really cool. I mean, that's the team I'm obviously rooting for. But anything can happen. What?
Well, I'm getting some heat in the chat for not acknowledging Leroy's swimming abilities. Leroy might have gotten a little bit better this season. So he went from the swimming abilities of a 4-year-old to a 6-year-old. Like, Leroy's not a good swimmer.
No, he's not. I think he's by far the weakest.
No, he went from an awful one to a very bad one. So sure, he got a little better.
No. He definitely improved. But he's definitely not, West by any means. Like, he's by far the worst swimmer out there, 100%.
Yeah.
Right? We're not crazy.
100%.
Yeah, we're not being crazy, are we?
No.
I can't see the chat right now. I have something brought up over it, so I can't see it. So, but with that being said, anything else do we want to talk about, or you want to get into some segments?
I mean, I think we're good. I'll go ahead first. Last thoughts in the episodes, and we can kind of go around the horn here real quick before a few segments. I would say overall, very, very straightforward. Good episode. Set us up very well for the finale. And I think it's kind of interesting how they said, like, we're going to cut a team at the end of the episode, but we're still not 100% sure who's getting cut. We would think it's Fezzi and Casey just because she can't run. But I like the fact that at least like going into next week, all 4 teams, I guess, still have a shot. There's a bit of a surprise with Amber and CT. We'll see if they can switch up teams or not going forward. But I think whenever they cut the finale up into 2 episodes, usually the first one goes like this. It's hard to mess it up, just because you're not going to get a final result going into it. And then we'll see how the next 90 minutes of the challenge are going to tell a lot about how we look back on the season. Not necessarily who wins it or not, but just quality of how they're able to wrap it up here.
Mikey the Doctor just wrote something I was going to bring up. And yeah, I mean, there's not much to say. I mean, obviously one of you guys in there, and it could be you, Mikey the Doctor, you're a little snitch or something, possibly working with MTV. But I mean, we brought it up how many times, who's Corey's partner, and obviously they ran the segment tonight. And I mean, it's just, I'm not surprised. It's just, we realized that. So segments tonight. What do we got, Alex?
I'm ready.
What do we got?
First one of the night. We got a few tonight. First one is an old one. This day in challenge history.
Oh, sorry.
This day in challenge history. This one, I think it should go pretty quickly, and then we can get on to Challenge Madness.
Sorry, I had to share it. You know, when people send me this information late, you know, I gotta get it up. So
sounds like a reliable sender. First one, this day in challenge history. A little bit of a trivia question. The season is my favorite season, the one that I've been talking about for years now. Fresh Meat 2. I'm a big Fresh Meat guy. But the season is Fresh Meat 2. This day in challenge history in the year 2010, episode 2. Who won the challenge? Who won the daily challenge? What team?
Kenny and Laurel. Team won like the first 7.
First part of the question.
What'd you say? Who won the daily or the elimination?
The first part of the question, who won the daily? Episode 2.
Was it the one where they go underwater?
Let's see. It was, yes.
15, Landon and Carly.
15 feet below water.
Landon and Carly won that one.
I'm gonna go Mr. Beautiful.
Landon and Carly.
All right, so everybody said either Kenny and Laurel or Landon and Carly. One of those is right. The correct answer was Landon and Carly.
Yeah, but surely that was the last time they won anything on that season.
Second part of the trivia question is, who was the house's vote to go into elimination? Not the winner's vote, but who was the house's vote that got voted straight into elimination? What team? Episode 2.
Was it Kenny and Laurel? Because I thought the elimination for that one was Sarah went in. And I forget Sarah's partner. It wasn't Luke.
No,
it was Vinny. Vinny and Sarah went against.
See, but I don't think Kenny would have had enough votes. I think
that's when Landon chose the side. They chose the side of Wes.
The handshake?
Yes.
The handshake.
Yes.
I think you're right. I think it is Kenny and Laurel.
So Kenny and Laurel went in against Sarah and Vinny, and Sarah and Vinny obviously lost.
Well, so what's the answer?
Your answer is
Kenny and Laurel.
Kenny and Laurel's your answer.
I think the logic you guys had there is right. You just kind of flipped it at the end, because Landon and Carly did make the handshake with Wes and Mandy.
But the house vote was Sarah and Vinny, and then they used their vote, the second team, on Kenny and Laurel, making Sarah and Vinny the house vote.
There we go. Yes. Landon and Carly made the deal with them because they said they would send in Kenny and Laurel. Then the house, Wes rounded up all the rookies and all those clowns to vote in Sarah and Vinny.
Yeah, Jesse Adams. Yeah, now I'm, it's coming back. The gears are turning.
So yeah, episode 2, Fresh Meat 2. Landon and Carly win. They pick Kenny and Laurel. House picks Sarah and Vinny. Obviously, Kenny and Laurel win the second elimination of the season. So that's all I got for this day in challenge history.
0 for 2 on the night. Andy, uh-oh.
Watch it, Mikey.
All right, next segment, we got a little Challenge Madness. Finally, I can't even speak. Finally done with the March Madness bracket. Thank God, MTV didn't, copy us on this either. So,
we'll kind of talk about the championship matchup here. Thank you to all of the fans in the chat, everybody who's voted on Twitter, kind of followed along through the whole bracket. So we started out with 32 challenge teams ranked by the three of us here. And then it was basically up to you guys every week for the past 5 or so weeks. In the challenge championship, which Trevor and I debated a little bit last week, even though it wasn't a big debate, with CT and West going up against Bananas and Sarah. And CT and West win this. So they win the official Stir the Pod Challenge Madness 2021. I mean, what do you guys think about this? Obviously, I think it was kind of from the second Emily and Paula lost, it was kind of like the doors were open for anybody else. I think when we got to the championship, even the Final Four, it was pretty obvious that CT and West were probably going to find a way to win this. But I mean, put that up in the graphic. I mean, this is the second time we've done this, so I think now our graphic is going to say 2019 Rivals 2. I think is the season that won best season of all time. 2020 COVID, 2021 CT and West. That's what's up with the Raptors.
Absolutely. Andy, anything, we kind of discussed it last week, but what did you think about this matchup? CT and West in the finals versus Bananas and Sarah, and obviously CT and West winning. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think there's a case to be made for Bananas and Sarah. I don't think there's a bad winner out of those two. Bananas and Sarah were one of my favorites of all time. I mean, CT and West, it's literally two of the best people to ever be on the show. And they've got put together and they figured it out. And they were off and running from day one. And I think that kind of goes to, I hate saying this, but I think you got to give a lot of credit to Wes on this one, because when Wes and CT got matched up, he was like, you know what? CT is a bull. I have to figure out how to contain him a little bit. And he did. And that was when CT was a wild man. And Wes did a really good job being the brains behind the operation, but still knowing that you have to let CT be a little wild, but still reel him in. It was kind of like a dog on one of those leashes that goes out and then you can pull it back in. CT was a pit bull and Wes was the owner. So call CT Bootstrap and Wes was West. So it worked out really well. I hate to give Wes credit on this, but they were a great team and had a great season. Well, very well deserved here.
Trev, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like I said last week, I did think CT and West were a dominating team. I took the side of Bananas and Sarah. I said the hardest thing with the whole Bananas and Sarah thing is the greatest team would be obviously Bananas taking the money and run. That kind of felt like that hurt that team. It's kind of Bananas versus the world at that point. But like during the season, I mean, like I said, that team won how many daily challenges? So I don't know. I mean, looking at this matchup, I would probably say CT and West deserved it. But, my team, Emily and Paula, got knocked out before the Final Four, so I'm still a little salty about that.
Yeah, I feel kind of like what Andy was saying. Like, I feel like when CT and West happened, it was just a perfect overlap of their challenge careers. Mm-hmm. Like, CT was peak physical CT, and I don't think you could say the same for Wes, because Wes was off the roids. He was very skinny this season, but Wes has always been a really, really smart challenge guy. I mean, compared to the rest of these idiots. So, like, he's always been a smart guy, and I feel like you paired a peak physical specimen CT with a really, really smart Wes who wasn't as big as roided up Wes, but could still run. Obviously, they ran the final. And I mean, it was, and we talked about this in previous matchups of Challenge Madness, was they were expected to win from day one, and they ended up winning. I was looking up that season now, I think they only won 3 challenges through the course of the season and then won the final. Because if you remember, Trey and Zach actually won the first 2 challenges of that season. They kind of dominated early. Frank and Johnny won a couple. Jordan and Marlon won a couple. But I mean, CT and West obviously didn't go into elimination. They had all the numbers on their side the entire time. Just dominance from day 1 to day 50 or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else, or are we good to just wrap up Challenge or STP Madness 2021?
I think that's it for this year. And again, like we said, and we'll obviously talk about this with the fans once we get there next year. But, every March, this is March, we'll try to come up with a challenge bracket to try to put a few things together. First time we did seasons. This time was challenge teams. So we'll figure something out every time the season is kind of in March Madness territory.
Yeah, absolutely.
So congrats to CT and Wes.
Yep. So any other segments?
One shining moment.
We did not have the budget for one shining moment this year. So maybe next year. So
maybe next year when the challenge Twitter steals our idea again.
So what now? MVP, LVP?
I think we're ready for MVP, LVP.
All right. MVP, LVP time. Chat, you know what to do. Should we just take the first one?
Let's take the first one. We'll take the first order, go around the horn and give our picks. This one's tough. We're down to the wire here. Only 8 challengers left in the game. Mike
Woody. It's Woody. Woodson there, Jesse. Mike Woodson. Woody is bringing it back home. IU basketball's back.
Of course. People forget Wes did quit daily that season.
Oh.
We going with that order?
I don't care if he wants to. It seems like Alex is always first, but
always going first. All right. So we'll go Alex, Trev, Andy, MVP, LVP around the horn. Snake draft. You guys give your picks while we give ours. My MVP for episode 18. I'll try to keep it sweet and simple. I'm going CT. I mean, he was just a machine the entire episode. Finished in first place. He has a dessert that he's looking to hand out to another team here that's only going to increase his and Amber's lead. I mean, he's just a beast. He's just so good at these finals. He's an eating machine. He was making jokes about how easy eating all that stuff was. And he can do puzzles. He can beat Fezzi up on the hill and all that. So MVP, I'm going CT.
Yeah, great pick. I was going to go that, but I'll just go to his partner, MVP, Amber B. And I think she surprised me the most out of any person tonight's episode. Did not know how she would perform. She was first in running. She finished her puzzle. I mean, she looks so good tonight. So my MVP is Amber B. Very excited to see what that team brings to day 2 of the final. Or I guess the end of day 1 into part 2 of the final.
Yeah, so I'll wrap us up for MVPs. My MVP is going to be Karma. And I've got a couple things that flow into this. First and foremost, when you treat your partners like shit, bad shit's going to happen to you. Fezzi's a prime example. When you're a bad teammate, bad stuff's going to happen to you. Like, plain and simple. And it's happened to him the whole time. Mikey the Doctor, MVP me. Thank you. But karma, I mean, My Name is Earl was built on that whole, idea. But it also factors in on the flip side of, if you're a good partner, good things happen to you. I think throughout this whole season, the best partner has been CT. CT was amazing to Big T. He's been plenty fine with Amber B. He's like, you know what? I know I kind of got the shit end of the stick. He got Amber B by default, but he was like, you know what? Let's go do this. Like, let's win this damn thing. And then same with Amber B. Throughout this whole season, she has just been laser focused. You know what? I'm just going to go in and get the job done. And that's paid off for both of them, and it's been the opposite for Fezzi. So my MVP is going to be Karma.
Wow. Now, I feel like LVP tonight's going to be very interesting. I feel like we could give a group one, but that's no fun. So, Andy, I'm curious to hear your LVP tonight, and maybe a rant. I don't know.
We'll get into that. Well, I mean, the LVP is a no-brainer. It's the LVP that I've given multiple times, back-to-back episodes, maybe even back-to-back-to-back if you go back one more. Easy LVP for me, Fezzi. Like, everything about this. To think that he goes from, like, and even just this one episode where they start off running. Oh, yeah, this is a walk in the park. My body's built for this. All right, you fucking loser. Then they get to the King of the Hill, and it's, oh, yeah, I already won this the first time. I'm going to win it again. Nope. And then your partner goes down. Instead of comforting him, and then CT wins, and Amber wins, and she picks CT, and it's, what? And then they get to the eating, and that is the cherry on top. No pun intended from an eating perspective, but his whole progression this episode was nothing but downhill. He's an absolute loser, period. Loser. You're a loser if you don't win. So until he wins, he's a loser. Like, that's just facts. So he was my clear LVP. He's such a bitch. I can't stand him. And he got absolutely exposed tonight. And when he got to that eating, I just had a big old smirk on my face. So my LVP is going to be Fezzi.
Sorry. My side honorable mention MVP is Ryan McCord for that comment, because that was actually a really good one. LVP tonight. Obviously, I would have gone the exact same thing, but I kind of hinted at it earlier. LVP has to be Cam. Coming in, she was the favorite. I would say girl favorite. She's strong. She has Corey as a partner. And realistically, their team was in third at part one of the final. I'm not saying they could still win. They are in a great spot to still win. But today's performance, she looked terrible, I think. Eating has not looked good. The color coordinating thing, not looking good. The whole running, she's been in third the entire time. I don't know. She talks a big game and says she's the killer Cam and stuff, and, she's in third right now. So, or I guess second with the injury. But I was a little disappointed in how she performed tonight, and hopefully she can turn it around for part two.
It's a fair pick. My LVP, I mean, at this point, we've said 5 different names, not a lot of options. I think I'm just going to go with, I think the only other person that you can maybe say for LVP.
Production.
I'm going to go only other challenger. Because I was thinking of non-challengers, but I'm just going to keep it as simple as I can, I think, here. I'll go with Nani. LVP for Nani. And it's not necessarily a surprising pick by any means. Like, if you were to say, in the running competition of the part one of the final, who's going to be in last most of the time, you'd probably say Nani out of these 8 people. And she still has a shot, I guess, if her and Leroy are able to pull off a really, good performance on a checkpoint or something. I just think it's the fact that this is, a classic, like, team that makes it into the playoffs on a lucky little run, and then they're not going to win a series. They're not going to – once you go head-to-head against somebody who's definitively better than you, you just lose. And I feel like that's kind of what Nani is here. I mean, Leroy's a beast, obviously. With the right partner, I think he could maybe win one of these. But it was kind of funny. Like, I don't know if you guys caught on to it, but, like, especially early in the episode, Nani was talking about, like, oh, if we fall behind or get eliminated day one, I'm gonna feel so bad for Leroy, almost as if like she didn't even like give herself any credit or like any realistic chance of actually winning. It was more like, let's see what I can do for my buddy Leroy. But I'll just go LVP Nani. I mean, obviously big fan of her. She's had some great outfits all season long. But just tonight in a final, first one, I think since free agents for her, just not her best challenge performance.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else on tonight's episode? Anything else? Any lasting remarks? Andy, Alex, you got anything? Oh, that was good, Mikey.
I mean, I think I'm good. We got 90 minutes to wrap this whole fucking 18, 19 episodes up. So
maybe.
We got the reunions, I think.
If they pull some bullshit like what was Dirty 30 where it's like a lot of something, could you imagine? Oh my Lord. So anything else, Andy?
No, I'm good. This was a good first final. I'm excited. It was one of my favorite episodes of the season, and they've got a good chance, good shot to really bring it home next week, and I'm fired up.
Yeah, could not have said anything better myself. So with that being said, thank you guys for listening to a brand new Stir the Pod podcast show. I've been your host. You can follow us on Twitter at Stir the Pod. We'll be live next Wednesday night, same time, same place. Giovanni Bernard, and we are live, and love you guys.